Technically, the Korean War has never officially ended. Both sides only agreed to an armistice, meaning a ceasefire, without ever signing a definitive peace treaty. This agreement has been in place since 1953, but at any moment the situation could escalate, turning the Cold War standoff into an open conflict, with both sides seeking every possible strategic advantage. South Korea can rely on the support of the United States and other allied nations, but who can North Korea count on? This country is one of the most diplomatically isolated in the world, which is why it is often called the Hermit Kingdom. If a conflict were to break out, who would be willing to assist it? Some answers to this question are quite surprising. Recently, a new international partner has decided to support North Korea. Russia. In June 2024, North Korea and Russia signed a historic agreement known as the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty. This treaty took many by surprise, considering that in the past, Russia had supported sanctions against North Korea in an attempt to limit its nuclear program. However, the agreement clearly states that both nations will provide mutual assistance in the event of an invasion by a hostile power. This is not the first pact of this kind between the two countries. As early as 1961, North Korea had signed a similar agreement with the former Soviet Union. After the collapse of the USSR, the treaty was replaced in 2000 by a much weaker arrangement. The new 2024 agreement provides for direct intervention in the event of a conflict, but North Korea has already been supporting Russia indirectly. In recent years, Pyongyang has sent large quantities of ammunition, including artillery shells and rockets, to bolster Russia's stockpiles. More recently, it has supplied advanced weaponry, including self-propelled artillery systems, multiple rocket launchers, and short-range ballistic missiles. Despite the apparent commitment to mutual support, there may be ulterior motives behind this alliance. Russia, engaged in the conflict in Ukraine, needs North Korean military supplies to sustain its war effort. On the other hand, North Korea benefits from increased trade with Russia, receiving food, raw materials, and foreign currency, critical elements for its fragile economy. Western analysts question Russia's true willingness to defend North Korea in the event of war. Moscow may have entered this pact merely to secure ammunition and weapons without a real long-term commitment. Additionally, the treaty only guarantees military support in the case of a defensive war, explicitly excluding any aid if North Korea were to launch an attack. There are also legal clauses that allow both parties to avoid direct involvement under certain circumstances, leaving room for a potential escape route if needed. If a conflict were to erupt on the Korean peninsula, it is unclear whether Russia would intervene directly. The majority of Russian armed forces are currently deployed thousands of kilometers away in Ukraine, and Moscow would likely seek to avoid fighting a war on two fronts. For this reason, North Korea might be better off turning to a more established ally, China. Since its founding, North Korea has relied on China for military support. During the Korean War, Chinese troops entered the battle to push back advancing United Nations forces across the peninsula. Since then, China has remained North Korea's primary ally and trading partner, formalizing this relationship through a treaty in 1961. In addition to geographic proximity, the two countries share similar political ideologies, which have strengthened their alliance over time. However, this relationship has deteriorated over the years due to North Korea's self-reliance policies, known as yuche, which by their nature tend to isolate the country from the international community. To make matters more complex, China has sought to improve its trade relations with South Korea and the United States, two nations openly hostile to North Korea. Although China still maintains a policy of cooperation and mutual defense with Pyongyang, its patience has been tested by North Korea's continued provocations. In 2006, after North Korea conducted a nuclear test, China supported United Nations sanctions against the regime. In 2017, it even imposed unilateral sanctions to curb its missile and nuclear programs. Despite a reconciliation in 2021, when the two countries renewed their defense pact, China remains reluctant to become involved in a potential conflict. China's main interest lies in economic development and trade, and a new war in Korea would threaten regional stability. A conflict would inevitably draw in the United States, which is China's largest trading partner. Beijing has stated that it would only intervene if North Korea were attacked first and not in the case of North Korean aggression. Avoiding a new war is a priority for China, which uses its economic influence to maintain stability in the region, as between 90% and 98% of North Korea's foreign trade depends on China. Beyond Russia and China, there are few other countries that might offer support to North Korea in the event of an invasion. Surprisingly, North Korea has provided military assistance to other nations in the past, but whether these actions would be reciprocated remains uncertain. The most likely ally after Russia and China could be Iran, which shares a strong hostility toward the United States and the West with Pyongyang. The two countries have previously collaborated on missile and nuclear research projects, but no formal treaty obligates them to a military alliance. Additionally, Iran has other strategic priorities and is unlikely to commit to a war thousands of kilometers away. During the Vietnam War, North Korea sent about 1,000 soldiers and pilots to support the North Vietnamese communists against South Vietnam and the United States. However, today, relations between the two countries have cooled, particularly after Vietnam's economic reforms and its improved relations with South Korea. It is unlikely that Hanoi would intervene in the event of a North Korean invasion. Syria has also had ties with Pyongyang, particularly in missile development and alleged chemical weapons programs. There have even been unconfirmed reports of North Korean soldiers being present during the Syrian civil war in support of Bashar al-Assad's government. However, given that Syria is still struggling with the aftermath of years of conflict, it is unrealistic to expect it to provide any meaningful assistance to North Korea. In the past, North Korea has also cooperated militarily with Egypt and Libya, providing military advisors and selling weapons. However, both nations have recently experienced periods of instability and would be unlikely to offer any help in a hypothetical conflict. Despite its diplomatic isolation, North Korea has attempted to expand its influence in Africa by selling weapons and offering military assistance to various states across the continent.